This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Thursday, March the 7th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, and David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get it going. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So, of course, it's the proverbial calm before the storm. I've seen a variety of numbers regarding accumulation and the type of mix between ice and ice pellets and freezing rain and snow. All I know is it's going to be messy. So get prepared for whatever's coming our way this evening for certain parts of the province. All right, checking in on the Briar up in Regina. Looks like Team Guju, Team Canada have hit their stride. Looking pretty good yesterday with a mandatory victory required against PEI, 11-3 blowout. So they've got a big one today against Alberta. Team Slusinski, I think is the fellow's name. That's at 4:30 Island time. A win is a guaranteed playoff spot for Team Canada. Andrew Simmons and Team Newfoundland and Labrador, they got New Brunswick at 11:30 this morning. They're sitting at 1-5. Hopefully they can polish it off with a victory. And moving up to Labrador, check in on Kane's Quest. It looks like the Labrador Endurance Snowmobile race may come to an end today. So it's been a pretty eventful event. Once again, there was 31 teams that started the 3,000-kilometer race. Only 19 teams remain. Top three, all from this province. Team 99 is Randy and Sebastian Malik from Shaji, and they are about a couple of hours ahead of teams 73 and 79. Looks like they're going to finish off this afternoon. Hopefully a safe finish for all 19 remaining teams. The vast majority of teams that dropped out, mechanical issues. One team did require some medical assistance, but looks like mechanical issues were the driving force behind the other teams pulling out. Bad news for Canada at the Gold Cup. So, of course, Canada's women's soccer team has really been a world beater, and have performed admirably. At the Gold Cup, they came back a couple of times to send it to penalty shots. They lose 3-1 to the States, so they're out. Looks like the Americans and the Brazilians will face off for the championship at the Gold Cup. All right. So Wednesday, generally we see an adjustment at the PUB regarding the price of fuels, all largely unchanged. Fluctuations less than a cent across the board, so no big news there. But here's where there is some big news. So, of course, in the winter time, we keep a close eye on our bills, power bills. People have been complaining that their bills seem unnecessarily or unusually high. Fair enough, we can tackle that. Then, of course, concerns coming about the annual rate application hikes of 1.5% this year, and then next year, 5.5% increase. And, of course, the controversy regarding the application regarding return on investment to go from 8.5% to 9.85%. But here's a new one. So yesterday, the consumer advocate Dennis Brown, he put out a news release talking about smart meters. So basically, it's time of use rates. So here's a couple of quotes from the consumer advocate. All ratepayers in this province should have access to a smart meter. Smart meters enable rate options and promote time of day rates. This will ensure efficient consumption decisions by consumers. Smart meters will be particularly beneficial as prices roll out for Muskrat Falls costs and give ratepayers options. So basically, the busiest times of day on the power grid is in the morning, getting ready to go to school and work, lunchtime, and then at supper time. So if I had an opportunity to save money on my power bill by putting my laundry, for instance, in at 9 o'clock at night, I think most people would do it. You know, the change in behavior based on price point is a very natural phenomenon, carbon tax. So the pushback from Newfoundland Power is a little bit different, certainly from what the consumer advocate is saying. They're saying that the ability to make the adjustments to implement what they call an upgrade to advanced metering infrastructure would be about $100 million or so. Now, you know, they also go on to say that they'd have to prove to the PUB that the application would be in the benefit to the customers. $100 million? So someone reminded me that not that long ago, there were some discounted opportunities. I can't personally remember this, but the emailer tells me that there was some discounts available after 6 p.m. and maybe on Sundays. If that's the case, someone please fill me in because I really don't remember that. But be nice to have Mr. Brown on as well. Look, inside the world of smart meters in the country and in the world, it's very real and it's very prominent. Many jurisdictions have these in place. Some have had them in place for years. He goes on to say, statistics indicate that over the next 6 years, the penetration of smart meters will reach a level of 94% of homes in Canada and 97% of homes in the United States. Unfortunately, Newfoundland Power has not developed a plan for the implementation of smart meters in this province. This is not good enough. It'd be nice to have a further examination, because it's one thing to talk about the rate applications currently in front of the PUB, and we all know what's coming down the river when we talk about the rates regarding Muskrat Falls. So an opportunity to change my behaviour, to save on my power bill, is something that I would absolutely welcome. So Mr. Brown also goes on to say that ratepayers have already provided Newfoundland Power with $32 million for a new customer service system. But without smart meters, ratepayers cannot take advantage of that system. If you want to take it on, we can do exactly that. And sticking with power, Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, there was a high megawatt test on the Labrador Island Link. No reports of some major trips, so possibly that's good news. And we know now with the forecast regarding the possibility for a lot of freezing rain tonight, it'd be nice to know an update regarding access to and repairs ongoing for the 8 towers that were damaged with heavy snow load and or ice. So see if we can get an update there as well. The concept of getting what you paid for. We all want it, right? You know, you don't want to put your hard-earned money on the barrelhead and not get what you were told or promised. That's the case for the students out at Grenfell, Mun's campus out at Grenfell. So they had a $100 fee for campus internet services. They say they get continuously spotty connections. That means students haven't received the service they paid for, and consequently, they want a rebate. Fair enough. I mean, we know that this happened as a result of a cyber attack which crippled the systems out at the Grenfell campus. So they make an absolutely valid point at the student union. We paid you a fee, we didn't get what we paid for. So whether or not the university comes through with the rebate remains to be seen. They also talk about printing being an issue. Get this, the cyber attack jeopardized the network of computers connecting to printers on campus. Currently, only one computer on campus has access to a printer. So they did indeed, the administration that is, install cellular hotspots on campus, but apparently they're weak and people are easily getting disconnected from them. So getting what you paid for, not what happened for the students at Grenfell when they paid a $100 fee for campus internet services. We'll see how the university responds. Okay, speaking about online, these stories, I'm almost don't really know how to handle them sometimes because they're so traumatic. And this regarding the possibility for your child to be put in a very dangerous situation online. The concept of online exploitation. Coming from Thrive, Angela Crockwell. Maybe see if we can get Angela on. She says online exploitation spiked 40% during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. So all of a sudden, what begins as a very innocuous or innocent online relationship can take a very dark turn very quickly. And so consequently, you know, we want to trust our children. We want them to feel that they're independent. But putting that little warning sign in front of them, reminding them that this can change very, very quickly. All of a sudden you've been tempted or dared to get involved in a racier or a sexually related conversation. Next thing you know, there's been something that you wrote or said that could be held against you, to be embarrassed in front of your friends and your student colleagues and your parents. So let's just have those conversations. I mean, if the concept is my child is being exploited online, which snowballs or spirals into a potentially tragic situation, versus the understanding as a parent to say, okay, you made a mistake, here's what we're going to do. Because we are there to help our kids, right? As opposed to be embarrassed about them because they made a mistake. Now, some of these mistakes could be bigger than others, but a 40% spike in online exploitation is obviously a problem. And if you want to stick with online regarding matters, you know, I'm still kind of thinking about the old ArriveCan scandal or scam. I mean, to know that one little tiny company like GC Strategies has got about $100 million in contracts from the federal government, some of which they did very, very little other than copy and paste some text coming from the government of Canada to subcontract how it works. So that ArriveCan issue is still on the radar if you want to take it on. Okay, and with the weather pending. So we'll talk about homelessness. A bunch of things. Apparently, there's some 13 people who remain at Tent City. Inside of that number, we're told that 4 of them are professionals in the construction business. Now, of course, plenty of work available for folks who have a skilled trade, but I suppose we'd have to understand exactly what keeps them out of the workforce. Then there can be a variety of issues. So here are the questions. Have they been offered an option? For instance, the Comfort Inn. We still don't know a whole lot about the 140 transition rooms at the Comfort Inn and a 3-year lease at about $7 million per year. How many people are staying there? Who's eligible? Have the folks at Tent City been offered one of these rooms? So all the conversation regarding housing, and yet so much confusion reigns supreme. What is going on down there? You know, we've already heard from the minister responsible for housing that not able to acknowledge that housing is a human right, which is, enshrined in Canadian and international law. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than simply saying it's a human right, which it is. But what's happening at Tent City? We were told that come Christmas there would be no one else living there. Now, if people are rejecting some of the potentially dangerous and triggering situations at an emergency shelter, okay, what about a hotel? What about the Comfort Inn? So there's still so much yet to be fully understood about the status of folks living in those tents. And here comes some pretty nasty weather. On top of that, had a conversation with Walter Yetman, who's the mayor of Bay Roberts, and this could potentially be a problem. So he says that he and council were thrilled when a developer came forward wanting to build 20 affordable units. So 4 different fiveplexes, as the mayor put it. So 4 units with 5 apartments therein. Then the pushback was that people thought when you hear the phrase affordable housing, that it's going to be housed by people who are less than desirable, I think was one of the phrases that were used. Or what's one of the very cute ways it was put by one person. Anyway, I can't find it. Oh, they are less than palpable social traits. Interesting way to say you don't like them, you don't want them. But inside the affordability envelope, it's going to be potentially an unfortunate problem regarding stigma. Just think about it. Affordability can come in many forms. Yes, you may indeed see some people who you probably do not want living in your neighborhood and the whole NIMBY business, but you could have a couple at 75 years of age each, retired, maybe have limited pension on fixed income, and affordability is something that they desire and need and could be housed in one of these units. Are they going to bring a wave of trouble to your neighborhood? Probably not. So when we know that the country has got to build so many millions of units, and the vast majority of them not only hitting affordable targets, but building more homes brings back rent costs back to earth. A story coming from Austin, Texas. They have been building hand over fist at extremely quick pace. Consequently, over the course of the last 12 months, rents came down 7%. So building these units has to happen. Councils are going to have the fortitude to not be sucked in to saying that we don't want affordable housing where we live. The task force on housing is talking about density. So we're not going to be building out, we have to build up. We have to build some of these multi-units like has been proposed in Bay Roberts, because it does not mean necessarily that you're going to have a bunch of folks that are going to ruin your peace and sanctity of where you live. So that stigma cannot become a barrier which sees some of these proposed developments go by the wayside, because we need to build the homes. We just have to get at it. And if this is going to be one of the stalls, that's going to be a problem. You want to take it on? We can do it. All right. Admittedly, I don't know what to do with this story. Boy. And of course, it was broke by Anthony Germain over the CBC regarding the 4 freezer units outside the Health Sciences Centre that have some 28 corpses in there, 28 dead bodies. It's a bit of a troubling, disheartening, even possibly gross story. So, there's a lot to this. People are trying to hang it on the government, and the government is responsible for these deaths and the way that the bodies are being housed. Now, it does come across as a little bit cold to simply say that the solution is putting in a permanent feature as opposed to these freezer units that you would see behind a transport truck going down the highway. Is that the answer? And what's the cost associated with that? I go on to be confused about just how many people are unable to or unwilling collect their loved one and put them to some dignified end of life. So the government puts forward a death benefit of some $2,338. Hasn't changed in a couple of decades. Certainly doesn't come anywhere close to covering a cremation or a traditional funeral. So they say they will look at that number. And how does it work? So if I apply for that money, do I get paid directly? Does it go direct billing from, say, for instance, a funeral home? Because some of the stories we're hearing is that maybe, just maybe, some folks are getting it. And last year there was 360 folks got it, totaling about $990,000 in total for these death benefits, I guess I'll call them. So how does it even work? Do I get the check, or does it go to the funeral home? Are people getting the check and not even picking up their family members? I don't know, but that's some of the stories. Even more confusing again, my God, government. So they say they only found this out via Anthony Germain's story, when in fact the staff at the Health Sciences Centre say they've known about this for months. There was that fourth unit was added in December. So it begs the question, how and why does this disconnect continue? Whether it be contractual relationships between NL Health Services and Canadian Health Labs with the travel nurses. Is there not some sort of weekly briefing, at least on the operational front, so that we know when it eventually is untold, or it's revealed, by the media, that it's going to be a political hot flash? So who knows what when? I know there's a lot of operational issues that it would be impossible for one person to be the keeper of every piece of information coming from something as big as the health community, but how can we just be finding out these stories through the media? Someone knows. Administrators at the Health Sciences, they knew. Are they not in contact with people at the helm of NL Health Services? And are those folks not in direct contact with the minister responsible? It's just such a strange story. And yes, a permanent solution to put in a permanent freezer unit as opposed to these freezer reefers? Is that really the solution? Is it about increasing the benefit and maybe paying directly to the funeral home? So, and of course, they talk about the government, whether it be with a potter's field or simply paying for cremation up front. 4 of the bodies have died by suspicious causes, and the chief medical examiner, Dr. Nash Denich, he has the ability to authorize a cremation, but he hasn't as of yet, but it has happened in the past. You want to take it on? We can do it. All right, so yesterday, the Minister of Finance, in quiet fashion, said, imminently we will know about when budget day will be. It's going to be sometime this month. I guess we'll all find out at the same time. Lots of discussions to be had inside the world of the fishery. Hoping to speak to someone regarding a controlling agreement story today, which is illegal but it's continued to remain in place. It's been settled in court, so we'll pick that apart a little bit further down the line. And then, of course, we need to see the pricing formula regarding snow crab so we can get this going. We can talk about the redfish allocation. And, of course, the Premier and Minister Lovelace will be in Boston at the Seafood Expo coming up very shortly. I want to end with this one. So while we are, for the vast majority of folks anyway, the struggle is real. To fill up your rig with gasoline or diesel, to heat your home, to buy your groceries. It really feels like the prices that have shot up are going to take forever and a day to come back to earth. And this is where you wonder whether or not politicians can read the temperature, read the room. This regarding members of Parliament. So no firm numbers are out there quite yet, but in general terms, over the years, when we see the increase of people's own salaries, so the average annual increase in the private sector this past year, was 4.2%. Generally speaking, that will be reflected increase in pay to members of Parliament. So here's what the numbers look now. A backbench MP salary is currently $194,600. A minister makes $287,400. The Prime Minister takes home a salary of $389,200. Okay, so let's see if we bake in the projected 4.2% increase. That would mean that a backbencher will receive $202,700 in an annual salary. A minister, $299,000 plus. The Prime Minister, $405,400. Now, they can indeed put a stop to this. When we talk about affordability and holding government to account, I haven't heard from anybody outside the Liberal Party talk about maybe, just maybe, we pause this hike on April 1st. Maybe it'd be nice to hear from them, because they certainly bleat on an awful lot about money going out the door. So, after the recession in 08-09, the government absolutely stopped automatic Member of Parliament pay hikes from 2010 to 2013. So there is context to replicate what happened in 2010 to 2013. At no point, and there is zero argument to be made for an automatic pay increase for a Member of Parliament at this time. People are struggling. Read the room. Stop the pay hike. It doesn't have to be forever, and I don't begrudge members of Parliament or MHAs to get paid, and to get paid properly, but a pay hike at this moment in time seems like a gross misread of the reality of life for millions of Canadians. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Openline. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. We're going to kick it off out in Stephenville with Sean. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Someone mentioned via email that why didn't you talk about the story regarding military preparedness and spending on the military? I read it this morning, and it's a horrific story. It really is. We are woefully unprepared. So if you'd like to bring it forward as a caller, fair enough. If not, I will absolutely speak to it in the morning. I just read it about 10 minutes before we went to air. So that story is very, very real. And more Canadians have it as a priority for spending on the military and military preparedness, so we can take it on. We're going to start in Stephenville, but just quickly, yesterday was the by-election. So the unofficial by-election results, there was 12 candidates to fill 3 seats. Tom O'Brien, Maurice Hines and Darrell Roberts, were the successful 3 moving through. Let's go to line number 2. Sean, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
I guess, boy, I can't take the smile off my face this morning. The people have spoken in Stephenville. 88% of voters turned out to vote yesterday, the highest voter rate ever.
And not common. When we talk about by-election, it's usually crazy low turnout.
Yeah, but this was 88% of Stephenville came out and spoke. So
Amazing.
I mean, I took a lot of abuse in the last 2 years. The stuff that I've been posting and stuff like that. But I mean, I guess the people are listening. There's a few key points I want to bring up this morning. There, Mr. Rose stated when the airport deal was done that there'd be no more financial burden on the taxpayers, right? And then. In the new budget now, water and sewer taxes went up $60 on every resident in Stephenville. I'll just give you an example. I mean, I own nearly 60 apartments. I mean, that's a $5,000 increase right there. And property taxes went up 20%. So where does those increases go? It has to go on to the renters and landlords and stuff like that, right? How are seniors supposed to live with all this, right? And when the new owners of the airport asked for grant in lieu of taxes, I thought he had millions and didn't need our money. Not a couple of months gone by, and he needs the taxpayers' help again, right?
Well, it was one of the things Mayor Rose was saying that would be a boon to the council would be taxes in the neighbourhood. I believe the number was $250,000. And of course, you're right. Now, the mayor goes on to say that this is very similar for large entities like in Derelict, the Airport Authority pays a grant in lieu of taxes and other examples. But that's distinctly opposite from what he said initially.
Well, in his speeches and everything, that he had to get this off the books, and we were going to get this $250,000-$300,000 in taxes, and the taxpayers of Stephenville is going to get it, and we're not 2 months in, and then we're looking for grants in lieu of taxes, right? And Mr. Rose stated in a council meeting, which I posted on my Facebook wall this morning, and anybody who wants to go look at it, Sean J.B. Hickey is my name. When people of the town question what they were doing at the airport deal and taxes being raised, Mr. Rose said in a meeting, as the mayor of Stephenville, it's none of these people's business. Mr. Rose seems to forget he was elected by the people to represent the people in their best interests, not for his personal agenda, which I think he's forgot about, right? Yesterday, a woman councillor called a 95-year-old woman in Stephenville and told her who to vote for. It was 3 of the elected candidates that could be controlled, I guess, by the current council and mayor that they were pushing to get elected into this election. I think the people have spoken loud and clear on what they wanted in Stephenville, Mr. Rose stated in operating Mr. Rose stated on Openline with you, calling me a liar, that he had his permits, into which I sent you documentation stating otherwise. Well, the government of Newfoundland came back on December 6th of 2023 stating that he couldn't live, operate, or do what he was doing up there because he's on the Stephenville and Kippens watershed area. And what do the 3 councillors and mayor do? They throw out his eviction order and allow his houses going up against the government of Newfoundland. How is that representing the people of Stephenville? They're going against everything that they're supposed to be doing. The latest, Patty, Occupational Health and Safety was at the town of Stephenville and interviewed employees. And they're sending in investigators to interview every employee and to deal with the bullying and mismanagement. The town employees asked for a meeting with the mayor and the current council, and they were denied the meeting. So the employees of the town went to occupational health and safety trying to get help. I mean, there's 3 or 4 people off on stress leave. They can't do their jobs. They just hired 3 new positions at over anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000 a year for these positions. People have left their other jobs to go to these positions. And when we get a new council and mayor in there, I mean, these positions are probably going to be eliminated. It's just crazy what's going on, and I just wanted to bring it to the light of the people, right? And last but not least, Tom O'Brien, a great man. He was mayor before. I got all the respect in the world for him. Morris Hines as well, an ex-school teacher, military. Darren Roberts, 38 years as an accountant. Let's go, boys, and get this town back to normal where we can learn to survive and pay and live in a community which we all love to be in, not what it's been created in the last 6 years under this leadership and councillors.
I appreciate the time, Sean. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Patty. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3. Alice, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi there. I'm just calling from there's a protest site that is just wrapping up now, actually, in Mount Pearl at the Kraken Robotics offices. And so I just wanted to give everyone a call and let people know about that.
Fair enough. So the assertion is that Kraken is doing work with Israeli defense contractors, right? So
Yeah.
what exactly is the equipment that's being provided? Because the only piece that I know about is a underwater drone that is, intended to hunt for explosive devices underwater. So what?
So since 2016, Kraken has provided its catfish towed sonar system to Elbit, which is used on its Seagull unmanned surface vessel, and that was as of March 1st, 2024, still listed as part of Seagull's sensor array, which is used by the Israeli Defense Forces. And Israeli Defense reports that the Seagull unmanned surface vehicle is likely being used in the current genocide in Gaza. And Elbit officials have mentioned that the Seagull is being redesigned to make it larger amid tensions in the Red Sea over shipping lanes. So, yes, it is a drone vehicle that is being used under the water, but it's still being used by Israel's largest weapons company, and reports from Israel Defense Forces itself is indicating that it is being used now in Gaza. Also, Kraken has had relationships with other Israeli arms firms, including Elta Systems. And Kraken has provided its man-portable synthetic aperture system to Elta's recently launched Blue Whale system as of May 2023. So, it's not the only... It's not just Elbit that Kraken has relationships with, and Kraken itself and its CEO, Greg Reed, has boasted about the international partnerships that the company has, including with Elbit, and, has spoke openly and proudly about their relationship with Elbit, which, again, is Israel's largest arms company and weapons company. And they've said, even in February in a 2024 press release, Greg Reed said that the escalation of geopolitical tensions are beneficial to Kraken's bottom line, and suggested that there will be increased sales to, quote, existing customers. So, we just find it really egregious that a local company in our small province is profiting off of a genocide on the other side of the world. And our focus actually is on getting the Canadian government to initiate an arms embargo now, that we do not want weapons or parts of weapons or elements that are used by weapons manufacturers to be sold from Canadian companies to Israeli companies or to the Israeli government.
Is this catfish towed sonar system entirely a defensive mechanism versus a weapon of war, a killing machine?
I don't think that it is the catfish itself is necessarily like a killing machine, but I don't really know how you distinguish between, a part of a killing machine and the killing machine itself, right? So the catfish is part of the Seagull unmanned surface vehicle, and the Seagull can also be fitted with missile modules for anti-submarine warfare. And so it does also have the possibility of having a stabilized, remotely operated 50 caliber machine gun and wire-guided torpedoes for standoff destruction of naval mines and underwater improvised explosive devices. So, it's a part of a system that can be used as a killing machine, yes. So I'm not an engineer. I don't know exactly how these things are used. I don't think there's any evidence that catfish itself is firing bullets or torpedoes or missiles, but it is part of a system that is being used by the Israeli Defense Forces currently. And like I said, there are reports that the Seagull USV is being used in the current genocide in Gaza, and the catfish sonar system is part of that Seagull USV.
I appreciate the call this morning. So the protest has now wrapped up, has it, Alice?
Yes, we have wrapped up, actually. Just, we blockaded the entrance for a good hour and a bit. And then the police came, and the workers, the manager of Kraken was clearly not impressed, did ask us to leave. And, we are not interested in getting arrested. We want to continue our ability to work towards making change and pushing our government for an arms embargo. So we did leave, but we left today, and that doesn't mean that we won't be back. And it also doesn't mean that we're going to let up on stopping local companies from, selling equipment to facilitate what has been called a plausible genocide. And we really want our government and our leaders to step up and say, we really can't have any part of this. Like, we must institute an arms embargo now and free ourselves from the risk of our country being complicit in genocide. I don't want that. And I don't think anyone else in this country wants that, frankly.
I appreciate the time. Thanks for this, Alice.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Let's see here. Let's take a break. When we come back, Veronica's there to talk about the proposals of the wind, onshore wind, and Peter's there to talk about moose management. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Veronica, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How's it going?
Doing okay. Thank you. How about you?
I'm good, but honestly, I'm also not too good. For the past several months now, I've just been feeling a lot of anxiety and sadness and powerlessness about what our government and some corporations are planning for rural Newfoundland in terms of the wind farms, the industrial wind farms that are planned for parts of central and western Newfoundland. I'm here to talk about the worth of wild places and how these big energy projects actually go against their mandate to reduce greenhouse gases and reduce pollution and destroy nature and wild places instead, and actually are harmful to our environment and our planet. I also want to just speak to the fact that one of the arguments that our government has made for these projects is that they want to attract young Newfoundlanders back to the province with jobs, working either in the construction of these wind farms or in the ammonia plants that will be constructed. And I want to say I speak here as a young Newfoundlander. I'm in my 20s. I live in rural Newfoundland, and I believe the opposite. I came back to Newfoundland because of its wilderness and pristine, untrodden natural areas that are honestly fast disappearing from not only our province, but our country and our entire world. And Newfoundland has one of the last few remaining wild places where wilderness is at our back door. We've got wildlife, we've got clean water, we've got vast expanses of natural area that are still unblemished by industry or roads or human habitation, and that's a really special thing. Well, and I think we are throwing that all away.
The country's on a path to preserve 30% of its land and waterways, which is obviously a very wise thing to do. When we talk about energy, there is no form of energy that is been understood or developed that doesn't come with environmental cost. So when people are trying to come up with ways to look for alternatives as opposed to the world's reliance on oil that's currently in place, so whether it be with wind or solar, people will have to, I guess, pick and choose what they think is the best form or source of energy, because if we're just going to continue pumping oil, that comes with a distinct cost of the ecosystem. If we're talking about, persistent mining like is currently in place, that comes with the cost of the ecosystem. Wind farms will come with the cost. Solar will come with the cost. So how do we evaluate our need to supply the energy that we currently need in this province, this country, and around the world?
I agree with that totally. And I think that there's a place and a scale for these types of renewable energy projects. They should really be built at the local scale and built to serve the communities that they are built within. So we could have small-scale wind farms. We could have small-scale solar farms where the energy that's produced is going directly back into the community, where people can reduce their reliance on fossil fuels. Or they can also be built on a slightly larger scale in places that have already been developed, like old industrial areas, places near cities where, wild places aren't as prominent. And we really should strive to keep wild what is still wild, because those places are fast disappearing and they have an inherent value that I think most people forget about and dismiss very easily. And another thing that we should also consider is the need to really reduce all our economies and honestly our standard of living, because we cannot go on living the way that we've been for the past century or 2 centuries, just consuming and always wanting more progress, more growth, more money, power. We really need to scale everything down to a much more localized level, focus on, permaculture, localized economies where people live more off the land and reduce, carbon footprints that come with, shipping things across oceans or, driving or flying hundreds or thousands of kilometers to distribute their goods and services. We really need to think more on a local scale and reduce our consumption if we want to think seriously about reducing our environmental impact on this planet.
Reducing consumption is, I think, a worthwhile conversation. The question becomes whether or not small scale is actually a better idea than large scale, whether it be with price point for the end consumer, because we have to factor in things like how much it costs to energize our world. So small scale, also when you mentioned about putting these wind farms somewhere that's already been developed, the key in trying to find efficiency in wind is to put them where the wind blows. And not everywhere has the same wind speed and or the reliance on firm wind that other areas do. For instance, if you're talking about on the Port-au-Port Peninsula versus maybe some of the inland in central Newfoundland, there's been measurements done at these towers about the the reliability of wind. So should we not also be very, very careful not to spin our wheels and do what's optically more acceptable versus what is actually optimizing every opportunity to create power at the lowest price point, all the while understanding that every source of energy comes with environmental costs. There's no such thing as a purely green source of energy.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, but also I'm thinking about not just in terms of the energy that's going to be produced in, say, windier places versus less windy places. And I'm sure we can find windy places that have already been, say, industrialized or more industrialized where, places aren't as remote and rugged and wild. But I also want to think about, the local economy and the livelihoods of the people that live in these areas, because these areas are going to be forever changed by these projects. The ways of life of the people who rely on the land for hunting or fishing, their clean water, ecotourism, outfitting, all of these things are going to be forever eradicated and changed by the introduction of these projects. And we can't be saying that, this is what the people want and they just want jobs, because that's not the reality. People are coming back to Newfoundland for what it has, and what it has is natural beauty and wilderness that is really almost unparalleled in most other places in the world. So the fact that we're just throwing that aside and focusing just on our energy needs in the present day, in the present moment, and forgetting about future generations and what they will need, I think is irresponsible. And I just want to focus on what we're going to be losing if we go ahead with these projects, and the fact that it can never be regained.
And not to be crass or saucy, because I understand the environmental concern, I really truly do. And we talk about WERAC and protected areas and marine protected zones and stuff like that frequently on this program. What about if someone simply says, the environment as it stands today won't pay the bills. The environment as it stands today will not be able to provide the energy required, whether it be in this province, across the country, or around the world. So how do we find or strike the required balance? Because that's going to be the be-all and end-all here. Because if we just talk status quo, then your concerns regarding the environment and the pristine nature of will forever be damaged. Because the way that we currently generate energy in this world has been less than helpful to the environment, less than respectful to the environment, less than respectful to biodiversity. So I guess the question will be, where is the actual sweet spot? Because I don't have the answer to that. That's what I'm proposing and provoking further conversation, because at some point we are going to have to determine exactly where that sweet spot lies, exactly where that balance can be struck, because the current process now obviously has not found it. Are these wind energy and hydrogen and natural gas and other forms of energy, are they better alternatives? I'll leave that up to people who understand the science a bit more than I do, but that will be the ultimate goal, to find the balance, to strike the appropriate balance, to find that sweet spot, so to speak.
Right. And I think that just comes back to my point in saying that we drastically need to change the entire way that our system and our world economy works and the way that we consume products. We really need to completely reinvent our standards of living, the way that we just consume fossil fuels, whether it be by driving or flying everywhere, or just by purchasing things brand new from the store every single day, when we could be using a lot less, reusing much more, and localizing our economies. Our focus now in the world is trying to globalize everything, and I think that's the wrong solution. Everything needs to be hyper-localized in order to really create like grassroots communities that rely more on the earth and less on imported energy. And I think it's also worth noting that the energy that these windmills, these mega industrial wind farms would provide would be used to produce ammonia, which would then be shipped overseas to Europe to be used most likely in monoculture agricultural practices over there, which is really, it defeats the purpose of having wind farms at all, because we're just perpetuating this cycle of destructiveness in terms of monoculture agriculture and shipping across large distances.
The ammonia would be likely used for fertilizer, which is kind of where you're going with, growing close by, the whole 100-mile or 100-kilometer issue or rule regarding where you get things you eat. And that's the likely use for ammonia. And you talk about localized economy. It's an important part of the conversation here, because at this moment in time, some of the areas that have been proposed, whether it be Exploits Valley or down the Burin Peninsula, around the Port-au-Port Peninsula, we're talking about economies that have been battered and have no real economy of scale. And job opportunities have been fleeting at best. Consequently, what we see is an aging demographic where younger families are leaving, and consequently, localized economies will be mythological. At some point, there'll be no such thing, because there is no economy. There are no jobs. So it's not to say a job is more important than protecting the environment necessarily, but people do need, if we're going to talk about the ability to populate different parts of the province, there's going to have to be something attached to jobs. So whether it be inside the fishery, if we can manage that better than we have in the past, but there's going to have to be some different way to approach actual economic activity. And I'm not saying that we simply have to destroy everything to produce economic activity, but there will be no one left to enjoy the pristine nature of anything unless people actually have a job.
Agreed. And I think we certainly could manage our fisheries a lot better than we do. And there's also a big issue in our province with regards to food insecurity. And I think we could do a lot more by enticing young families or rural Newfoundlanders to, get into homesteading and permaculture and create those small-scale food networks that could be a way to help boost the local economy. And I would also argue that, these industrial jobs that are promised with the creation of these wind farms, we say, come back home, you'll have a job. Come back to rural Newfoundland. But what is the point of coming back to your home if your home no longer really exists, if it's been destroyed, forever altered by these destructive projects? So that's kind of the message that I want to put forward here is, for me personally, hearing about all of these plans and the vision of our leaders that are not aligned with mine, I want to flee Newfoundland. I want to leave this place now, because I'm afraid that everything that I love and cherish here is going to be destroyed. And that's not the reason that I came back here. I came back for that. And I think a lot of young Newfoundlanders agree with me and actually came back for that same reason.
How many young Newfoundlanders do you think will lose if and when there isn't an opportunity for them to provide for their family or themselves? That's where I think that complication of striking the required balance becomes extremely tricky. I'm glad it's not my job or my mandate in this world. Yeah. But, you can't have one without the other. You can't have a vibrant, sustainable, viable region and or province if people are unable to work. It just becomes completely unsustainable. I know we're talking about sustainability regarding the environment and small scale and localized economies, but for our collective sustainability, we are going to have to ensure that people have an opportunity to work. I mean, it's
Yes.
just going to be, regardless of people's environmental stance or political ideology, we all need the same things. We need money. Hopefully that comes with working for a living. We all need to provide for our families in every facet of life. And so that inherently requires economies of scale, job opportunities, because inside the wind farm, it won't be just the taxes generated by people working directly in construction or fully operational jobs after. It would be also the fact that they now have money. And we are the economy. The government is not the economy. So when people create a job, that has I'm not going to say trickle down, because that's been the worst economic theory in the history of man, but it has a multiplier effect. If I have money to spend, I have to spend it somewhere, and consequently, the economy of scale that we desire in Stephenville or surrounding area becomes much more manageable because people actually have jobs. They actually have money. I'll give you the final thoughts, Veronica, because I am late for the break.
Sure. Yeah, no worries. And I agree with what you said, but also I would argue that we need wilderness more than money. I think there's plenty of money and industrial outfits and opportunities everywhere in the world, but we are fast losing our wilderness. And if we do not have these natural places, if we don't have nature on our planet, we don't have anything. We are at a loss as a species, and we need to think further than our own generation and for future generations, not just the next one, but multiple generations into the future, and think about the long-term effects of this. And I think, that's where I'd like to leave it.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Paddy.
You're welcome, Veronica. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Peter, appreciate your patience. Your next talk about moose management. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number 5. Peter, you're on the air.
Morning, sir.
Morning to you.
And I'd just like to, in your preamble there this morning, you mentioned problems in the fishery before I get to my topic, and it's not going to take very long, but I just would like to say this. You know what John Efford is doing, what John Efford and his followers are doing right now and asking for, is what Fish and Ale was all about.
John Efford?
And, now that like the union, the FFAW is at rock bottom, someone like John Efford had to take up the fight. And, what a president he'd make, I just like to say that, and every man and woman involved in the fishery should be on the hill next week supporting them,
I'm sorry, John Efford, who are we referring to?
Well, John Efford is a fisherman from Portagrave area.
Oh, okay. I mean, because...
And he's spokesperson in the media for this last few days, this fishery protest, right?
Okay.
I don't know him. I'm not involved in it other than a supporter from a distance. But anyway, I just like to say that unions at rock bottom. They give away our rights to strike. The last thing they give away is 20% tolerance. So, that's over and done with now, that union part. But anyway, I just like to say that my head comes off to them and off to John Efford, and good luck.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. The other thing I would like to say is moose management. This has been on my mind now for the last 5 years, and I want to talk about Area 44. That's Bellevue. That's the area that I'm most familiar with, even though I did hunt in other areas. In this particular area here, it was 30 moose. If you want to go back, it was 30 moose that was allowed. And then it went to 60. And then Eugene Nipper and lobbying government for, to protect moose accidents from people. I went to 300. So, I don't know if people all over the island understand the Area 44 from Bellevue to it starts at Long Harbour, Norman's Cove, and most people understand the map, and it goes to Sunnyside, Cumachance. And in Sunnyside, Cumachance, you got to think it's around 2.5 kilometers from water to water, from Trendy Bay to Latentia Bay. And you're in the communities to get that. And then when you go up at Norman's Cove, Long Harbour, I don't know, it was probably 8-9 miles across there. And then when you get down to Rantham, Little Harbour area, you're probably down in a straight line, you're probably down to 5-6 kilometers there. So it's only a nick of land. We don't have any. Like a lot of spruce, a lot of birch. All we got is a bit of var or fir. Most people call it trees, and and a lot of the land is barren. We don't have any habitat to handle that kind of moose. Even if the moose were there, you drop them off, they'd leave because there's nothing there for them to stay for, like over Northern Peninsula and on central and western Newfoundland. And I don't know, like, if the people putting out those quotas, they got another 100 put out this year total. I think there was 31 successful last year. Well, I think he does it in percent, but 31 of 100, I guess, is 31. And Fatty, there's no logic behind it. And and the way people hunt now compared to one time, you probably got a couple of buddies, probably one was in a truck. I don't mean that two got guns or anything like that. I'm just saying that, you got a buddy, he'll go look for on his quad. You drive back and forth across Newfoundland on the rail bed. You can drive back and forth across Newfoundland on the hydro line. And, for only 31% or 31 moose to be taken out of 100, there's a real problem there. We don't see no crap. We don't see no tracks. And I spend a lot of time in the country. I love it, me and my grandson. And, it's just not there to withstand 100 moose again this year. And, Eugene Nipper, he's one of the few who went to government and got everything he wanted and more. No, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying, like, there was a call done by the government on moose. There was no fences. There was no electrical fences. There was no anything. It was just they open it up and free for all. And they put 2 licenses in each area because they give a roadside kill another license, and that was 3 kilometers from the Trans-Canada on either side. Well, when you get around here in this particular neck of the woods, when you go 3 kilometers from the Trans-Canada, you're down in Trendy Bay on one side, and you're down in Placentia Bay on the other side. So, there's no logic to it, and then they open it up in September. My God, who wanted to go in and hunt moose when you're supposed to be picking berries? The fly is eating it on the moose, and if you don't go, well, you don't get your moose at all. And, just excuse me, Paddy.
That's okay. I'll let you wrap it up pretty quick anyway, Peter, before I have to go.
Well, what are they going to do about it, We don't have any coyotes here. We don't have any moose. And other places, like they got coyotes, that's a problem, everything like that. But anyway, when you open up in September, the cows don't even get a chance to get pregnant. So if you shoot the bull in September, chances of the cow getting pregnant are much less. Now, sometimes you can shoot the cow too, but I understand all that. But what I'm saying is, Patty, that is wrong. And I don't agree with a roadside kill. If you want to hunt, go in the woods. It's supposed to be a sport. But if somebody is disabled, do everything you possibly can to accommodate that person. That's all I wanted to say, Betty. And I think it's managed very poorly. And it's supposed to be a tourist industry. It's supposed to be a sport. And that's the only thing that's not right now. It's a cull. They wouldn't do one on seals, but they done one on moose, and they're basically almost extinct in this area.
Peter, I appreciate the time. Thanks for the call.
And thanks for taking my call.
Anytime. Stay in touch. All right, bye-bye. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Pauline also wants to talk about wind energy. Another Pauline wants to talk about what's happening down at St. Clair's. Then we're going to talk about people passing school buses, which is infuriating. And then we'll speak with you on a topic of your choosing. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Pauline, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm the one at St. Clair's. I'm down at the merge. I went in Friday, and I'm in the quarter ever since then. I'm trying to get to the Miller Center, and they're giving me the runaround. And I have no privacy down here. I'm on a stretcher, And I mean, I'm trying to get back and forth to the bathroom by myself because half the time they don't have enough nurses to help me. And I'm not getting the food. I mean, it's not that good, but that's all I can do about that. But I mean, I wanted to get out of here because I fell down when I was home, and I can't go home because I can't walk on my leg. So I'm trying to get to the Miller Center so they can give me physio, and they're not getting back to me. So I know someone yesterday, she phoned. They put in the application for her to go down there, and they got it right away, and she's gone because she got a hold of Tom Osborne.
So you've been on a gurney in the hallway for a week?
Yes, I went in Friday.
And so any sort of communication about when you're going to be able to be put up on the ward?
I'm not going to be on a ward.
What's going to happen to you?
At minute. They're waiting for me to put me down to the Miller Center.
Oh.
And I can't go in a ward here, like Rome, because I'm not using an IV or a monitor. I was here before, and I was in the same situation. I was here. I fell down too, and I was in the same spot I'm in now for Friday to Monday. The same situation. So I can't go home because where I'm to, I have to go up steps go down to my apartment. I'm at Northview, and there's steps going down, and I'm using a walker. And I can't get down there. So that's the only place I could go when I left where I was to, because I had to go because the landlords wanted to move in, so we had to get out, and that's the only place. I didn't want to go in a shelter where I have a walker, and I didn't want to go there, so that's the only choice I had. I'm trying to get another place, but if I get another place, Northview wants $500 if I move to another Northview apartment.
Okay, which doesn't settle or solve the issue that you're currently facing by lying in a hallway.
No. And I mean, I'm on a stretcher, and I have no privacy. So everyone, and I mean, you can't take a bath, you can't take a shower. So I got one of them hats for the shampoo on my hair, and what you call it, is greasy as hell. You should see it. I mean, my hair is not like this. And everyone come back in the corner looking. I mean, it's not right.
Well,
I mean, as he says, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, sometimes that's absolutely true. And
I know that all my life.
Okay, and this one...
I had CP too. Cerebral palsy.
And this particular issue hits home with me because I watched one of my loved ones lying on a stretcher in a hallway for far too long. It was infuriating.
Yeah. But the last time I was here, a friend of mine, her husband had cancer stage 4, and he was in a room, and he took him out of the room and put him in the hall. He had stage 4 cancer.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. The healthcare has gone to the dogs.
Well, in this case, it's the number of beds that are available. And, of course, it's not just the physical bed that the concern here is.
It's not the bed.
It's the staff.
They're not, I can't go in there because I'm not using a monitor or an IV.
Yeah, no, the point I was going to make is that it's not the physical bed that might not be available.
No.
It's the staff to accommodate a patient in that bed.
Yeah, the staff is, I mean, like they're run off their feet. I mean, it's not the nurse's fault. I'm not saying anything about them. And then they give me one wheelchair with the brake on, and I go back and forth to the bathroom. I try myself, but they give me a walker with one, not a walker, wheelchair with one brake on it. And I mean, I couldn't do that because the wheelchair will move if I sat in it.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll start to spin. Pauline, I'm sorry to hear of your troubles. Let me or David know when you get transferred down to the Miller Centre.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get down today. I found out and they said take a couple of days. But me, Mrs. found Tom Osborne, and they found the head nurse here to get her down there. She was even out on the floor, on the corridor, and she got in the room. As I said, it's not what you know, it's who you knows.
Well, fingers crossed that you get transferred down there today, and I appreciate your time and I wish you well.
I can't, because where the snow's coming, I want to get down there.
Understood.
Yeah.
Let's hope it happens. Let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Be well.
Yeah, bye.
All right, bye-bye. Before we get to the break, let's go to line 3. Brian, you're on the air. Brian, on line.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Oh, pretty good. Just curious, Paddy, if you know anything about what's happening on the Harbour Arterial there with the lighting.
With the lighting?
Yeah, they put the new all the lighting and poles in there, so I'm just if anybody has any idea what's happening with it.
So I don't know the timing of lighting them up. I know they were all hauled down as they were doing the major road work there. So I'm unsure of the status, but we've got a couple of things, questions for Newfoundland Power, who would be obviously responsible for the ultimate lighting of those. I'll see what I can find out right away.
Right. Now, I did hear that it's possible that there was a big mistake made there, and there's putting all the light poles up to now because they can't seem to get the power to the lighting. I don't know if there's truth to that.
I'm not sure of the status or the reasons as to why the delay's in place, but I'll find out.
Well, it'd be good to know. I'm sure people are wondering, right?
No doubt about it. I will see if we can get that information ASAP. I'll zip them off a note here right now.
All right, that'd be great.
Appreciate it, Brian.
All right, take care now.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's take that break. When we come back, Todd's here to talk gas tax, but Pauline's going to kick off the next segment with wind energy. Don't go away. And welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Pauline, you're on the air.
Hi there.
Hi.
You can hear me, right?
I can hear you pretty well, yeah.
Okay. I wanted to reply because somebody had called in concerning the wind energy and thinking about the people and concerned about young Newfoundlanders and everything. And I wanted to offer a different perspective if possible.
You can offer whatever you like.
Anyway, I live in the Bay St. George region, and I was just thinking about development, basically. We need development. And where would this area be without development? For example, the railway, and that mainly through the crossing and things like that. And, for example, the base. If the Air Force hadn't come in, the U.S. hadn't come in and put the base down and whatnot, would we even have a town to develop, for example? And they develop many areas in the region, much of which is still in use, for example. There are trade-offs to every development, and I think people need to kind of look at it that way. If you're going to develop areas, yeah, there are going to be trade-offs. Things are going to be used. There are things we're going to have to work around. But it's better to work with the companies and to try and come to some kind of mutual agreement so that we can make it work better together than to try and put up everything against and work against.
Well, development is always going to be part and parcel with having a livable area. Now, not to say that the wind farms as they're currently proposed are the best idea or the worst idea. I'll leave that up to individual opinions. But, I mean, you talk about development, whether it be the base, whether it be the mill that, unfortunately, of course, after 25 years closes doors, I think maybe 2005. Without those things, there wouldn't even be a Stephenville. So add the airport and others. So I don't know what the best path towards sustainable development is necessarily. But if we just go with stagnant status quo, Stephenville is going to perish. That's just the end of the story, because there aren't the opportunities that are going to keep young families in the region. And if that's the case, then before long, you've got tumbleweeds.
And that's what it comes down to. And if you want people to stay here, if you want people to come back, for example, or anything like that, you need development. And development is necessary. And I mean, we've had mills here. There was a quarry in the Port area, for example, and things like that. And I do believe G8 World Energy was planning on using that area, if I'm not mistaken, to possibly as part of its, but I don't know the details because I'm not part of World Energy or anything. But I think really thinking about the people need to be more involved. If people are so concerned about it, my hat goes off to World Energy, to be honest, because their door is always open. They've been having information sessions. They want to communicate with the people as far as I see it. And I'm going out of my way to try to communicate my questions and concerns, because I do have questions and concerns as well. No doubt I do. But it's like if we don't give our questions and concerns, or we don't try to communicate with the companies that want to develop, they're going to either go away because we don't want them there, or they're going to do as they see fit. We need to communicate with them to get the best deal possible for us as well. And that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to please everyone. And that goes with every walk of life. There's going to be folks who, whether it be quietly or very vocally, are in full-throated support of this project. And of course, there's going to be people who are vehemently opposed to the project. So that's just how it works. Government has its hands full here. So they very much seemingly look like they're on side with these wind proposals. The MOUs have been signed. The government has been talking about it being an opportunity. They've actually welcomed business leaders and politicos to Stephenville. We've been to Germany. So it looks like the government is on side. The federal government refused to even get involved with a environmental assessment through their federal agency. So I'll be surprised if there's not some proposals that are green lit here in the future. And that doesn't mean that the questions end, because there's still lots of unknowns here for me, in my perspective, to be honest.
Yes, and another thing, too, is that some of the things, like, for example, the environmental studies, World Energy, I know, has had to do environmental studies and have had to do more environmental studies. I know this from going to the different asking for updates and things like that. And we could actually use that information in future for our tourism, for example. For example, there are things that I didn't know grew here that I know now because World Energy had to do studies on it. And we could use it to our... It's better to work with a company than to vehemently oppose and fight against it. You got to know what somebody's about before you actually just put a wall up. Get to know them, I think, is the best idea, and work with them.
You know, the
That's
concept
the way I
of
see it.
that there's not enough information out there, but I'm told that there's been plenty of town halls. Whether or not people like the answers they're getting to their questions is a different consideration, but there's going to be, people keep telling me that there's, the majority don't want it. And then the company will say, well, the majority do want it. And so where the truth actually lies there, I have no earthly idea. The concept of a social license is important when we talk about development, because there's got to be a certain percentage of the population that has the uptake and thinks that they're on the right track, whether it be with wind or anything else under the sun. But Pauline, I appreciate your time. And there's going to be loud voices on both sides as we get closer to the date of approval, which I think is coming up on the 9th of April, or the decision is coming up on the 9th of April.
Thank you very much. Anyway, thanks for your time.
Anytime. Thanks, Pauline. All right,
goodbye.
Bye-bye. Dave, you want me to take the break? How are we doing on the phone out there this morning, Dave? Let's take a break, though. Todd, you stay right there to talk about gas tax. Let's check in on the Twitter box before we get to the break. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. And apologies that I didn't know who the John Efford was he was referring to, because I honestly don't know the name of all the fishermen. But apparently that John Efford is the late John Efford's son. And curiously, the late John Efford used to talk about what they refer to as the cartel, or the how the processing sector operates here in this province. That's words that others use. But now we're hearing the same sort of commentary coming from the late John Efford's son, John Efford. So if Mr. Efford, the fisherman, is willing or wanting to talk to us on this program as a spokesperson for the protesters, he's more than welcome. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, Todd, you're next. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Todd, you're on the air.
Morning, Patty. You got a good show going on again this morning, I see.
Thanks a lot.
I'd like to talk about that so-called come-by-chance gasoline tax that almost works out to about 5 cents on every litre that our illustrious Liberal government has put on us a few years ago, and they are refusing to remove or address and everything else. I've been advocating and digging my nose deeply into this, and all the government bureaucracy and all that stuff, they're all putting it off to the PUB now. They're saying this is in the hands of the Public Utilities Board to remove. That's the answers I'm getting. So it's just, a Liberal thing, pass the buck. I shouldn't say Liberal thing. This government that's in pass the buck thing,
Well, it does belong in front of the PUB. The government has the ability to set the gas tax, the provincial portion of gas tax, which they halved. It was 14.5 cents. They've halved it. Apparently that was supposed to run out on the 1st of April. We don't know whether or not they're going to extend it, but that 5 cents was indeed imposed at the PUB.
Yeah, it's still there.
It is.
So come on, let's get this off. I've been at this for a while, years now. I've been trying to dig into this, and I apologize today for my voice because I'm just coming off this bad flu that's on the go here, and that I've been at this for years. And if they had started this process 2 years ago when I got very active with this, we would have that removed now. It wouldn't be there anymore, because they tell me it's a long process to get this removed. It was only 24 hours and the slap of a gavel, basically, and they threw it upon us. Now, Come By Chance hasn't produced gasoline in years. Right now, God love them, they're over there, and they have what's called biofuel, and they got a lot of people employed over there, and hey, I'm waving the flag for them over there and sending them roses. They're doing fantastic. They got us working again, and they got that up and running, and I'm glad. But there's no gasoline coming out of it. So for years, we have been paying this 5 cents, it roughly works out to 5 cents on every liter, of tax. So why wasn't this addressed years ago when Come By Chance stopped producing?
But what does that mean? Why wasn't this addressed years ago? What do you mean by that?
When the Come By Chance refinery slowed down and wasn't producing anymore and things like that there, and why didn't the government, somebody in government at that time say, oh my God, we got a 5 cent Come By Chance tax? That's what they call it, Come By Chance gasoline tax on our people, but there's nothing that this tax is going to help anymore. It's not helping the refinery anymore. This thing was shut down, and
it's not being paid to the refinery, though. So here's what happened. So the PUB, upon a request from North Atlantic Refining, they made an application for the 5 cents, and their ownership at the time was Silver Peak. So the 5 cents is going to Silver Peak, but the fact of the matter is, and I'm not in favor of the 5 cents either, because the cost of doing business should be their problem, not my problem. So the 5 cents is about the importation and the distribution of fuel. Esso and Irving were not part of it. They also do indeed get a slice of that pie, but not this particular 5 cents. But because Bray Renewable Fuels is not producing any gasoline, they're only producing biodiesel, then nothing has changed. I don't think I should have to pay the 5 cents either, but the landscape that brought the 5 cents to be has not changed, which is why it remains in place.
I'm under the understanding it's a gasoline tax, and we're not producing gasoline.
Yeah, no, the 5 cents was applied for because with no gasoline being refined here, then it meant gasoline had to be brought in. And as a result of that additional cost, Silver Peak, through North Atlantic Refining, applied to the PUB for the 5 cents. But because nothing has changed on the refining of gas in the province, that's why that bloody 5 cents remains.
Well, we got to get rid of that bloody 5 cents. And people need to be boisterous on this. That's 5 cents extra that we're paying. Now, we have a carbon tax going on our gasoline very shortly again. We have other taxes. I've been watching the lines, and that our gas is going to go up a nice bit very shortly again, and summertime coming on, we always get a big jump. So let's muster all the people together in this on, because I'm going to tell you right now, just like you told me you don't agree and you wouldn't like to see it either. I'm sure there's not one soul out of the 500,000+ people on this island that agrees with that extra 5 cents. So let's get boisterous on this, people. Let's become a union on this and get together and voice our opinion through Openline. Call the Premier's office. Email the Premier's office. Get on this. That's our money. Okay, that's ours. That's coming right out. And you know, life's not easy, man. We're all trying to get together here, and we're all scratching and everything, trying to survive. Or you know, some people can't even afford to buy toilet tissue or all that stuff. So let's get together as one and start fighting this stuff, the stuff that don't make sense, because this don't make sense anymore. Okay. That we got to get together and get on these topics.
I appreciate the time. We talk about the price of fuels a lot on this program, and rightfully so. It's one of the things that we all share, regardless of who you're voting for. Appreciate the call, Todd. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Patty, for taking me. Have a good one. Bye.
You too, man. Bye-bye. All right, so the implication of the carbon tax is real. And on the 1st of April, the federal carbon tax is increasing to more than, just slightly over 17 cents per litre of gasoline. For a bit of a breakdown to what we pay, the maximum price at the pumps in this neck of the woods is 172.4. And inside of that, the benchmark price is almost 87 cents. The carbon price adjustment just shy of 6 cents. The wholesale markup is over 15.5%. The federal excise tax is 10 cents. It has always only been 10 cents. It never has increased since it was first imposed. The complement of all taxes combined on a litre of fuel in this province today is 54.29 cents. That's a lot of tax. And remember, they put the federal excise tax on, then the provincial gas tax, then the carbon tax, and they put the HST on top of it all. So 54.29 out of 172.4 is what we're paying at the pumps today. Let's go to line 4. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Best kind. How about you?
Not too bad. Just listening to your program this morning. But I'm calling, Patty, about something I've called before. I dropped my 9-year-old off at the bus. I've been doing that for years, just down the end of our street here where we have to drive them. And the number of vehicles passing school buses is incredible. Lights flashing, big yellow bus, kids standing by the side of the road, cars zooming by. I have sent countless letters to the RNC with descriptions of the drivers, descriptions of the vehicles, license plates, whatever else you can do to identify the people. I get a call back, sometimes a couple of months later, saying, we got your letter. Okay, great. We've issued a ticket. Okay, great. So I wait. The once I waited and finally got a call from the Crown Prosecutor saying, you didn't show up in court for the person that's contesting the ticket. Well, I would have showed up had I known there was a court date. Well, they told me you were subpoenaed. No, I wasn't. So anyway, shortly after that, I received a subpoena. So, of course, I put it on my date. That morning, got ready to go, but I got a call from the court saying, no, don't bother coming in. We failed to subpoena the driver of the vehicle. Okay, haven't heard from that one. That was a year ago. 2 days ago, as a result of subpoena, I'm back in court again. An hour and a half of waiting down at the courthouse. Finally, the prosecutor calls me in. How are you? How's things? Good, great, fine. Perfect. Got some bad news for you. Yeah, what's the bad news? We can't find the driver to subpoena him. This is what's going on. I'm so frustrated that other than standing in front of the school bus with a shotgun, I don't know what else to do. You make your complaint, and you can't even get the justice system to serve the offending people so we can get them in court.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lady, I'm pretty sure she's in Mount Pearl, and through her living room window, she takes rolling video of people doing exactly that. Passing school buses that are stopped, the red lights are flashing, the stop sign is deployed, and yet people either they don't understand the rules or they don't care. It means stop in both directions. You have to stop when the school bus stops and put out the stop sign. That's just how it works. So whether the answer be in cameras, dash cameras, whether it be at the back of and or the front of a school bus, where we can identify people and capture their license plate who have passed a stopped school bus and start writing tickets. I mean, if I can document people parking in a blue zone through, take my phone out, take the appropriate pictures, of which there's a variety that you have to take, supply them to the RNC, they can write a ticket like that. Why can't we do it with a school bus?
Well, that's what I'm doing. As you know, as in my job, Executive Director of the Hub, I'm doing that once a week.
Yep.
Of people who are parking illegally in blue zones, and tickets are being issued. And on occasion, I do have to go to court. But the problem here is a failure of not only our justice system, but the police system, part of it. Because, again, another example, I was driving my wife to work a few months ago across Columbus Drive to the Health Science. A driver in front of me was clearly drunk. I called 911. I got them on the line, and the guy said, "Can you give us the license plate number?" I said, "No, I can't because it's completely washed out. It's all the letters are off it." And then, okay. Then he said, "Well, how about a description of the driver?" I said, "No, because the windows are darkened." I said, "Why aren't you guys enforcing this?" Well, we'll get to that. He said, "Well," I said, "now he's turning off." He said, "Can you follow him?" I said, "You out of your mind? You want me to follow a drunk driver?" That's the situation we're faced with. Most times, I seen a guy the other morning pass the bus, and I couldn't get the license plate because the numbers are washed out. Why isn't the RNC issuing an order saying everybody's got 30 days to exchange their plates? No cost. Because you're seeing these vehicles, we can't even identify them, And there is no cost. No, there's no cost. No. I sound frustrated, and I am frustrated because, I can't sit in my car and let my son get on the bus. And I have my neighbor's little girl, she comes with me too in the mornings. I can't do that. Rain or shine, I got to get out, stand in the middle of the road, wait for the bus to arrive to make sure nobody comes and knocks down these two children. That's how bad it is. And yet, nothing's being done. I follow all the rules. I'm willing to go to court. I show up for court, and they can't even subpoena these people to get them into court. To me, it's a complete failure of the system. And, I'm at my wit's end. So until one of these days, one of the children are hit, and then everybody will say, "Oh, well, we didn't know there was a problem." There is a problem. There's an epidemic out there of people passing school buses, ignoring school buses. And when I talk to them, "Oh, I didn't see the bus." How could you not see a big yellow bus in front of your vehicle? Man, I feel like getting in the car and spanking them because, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just so frustrated this morning at this because, the morning I was waiting to go to court, 2 mornings ago, the morning I was waiting to go, I didn't get out of my vehicle because I had Crocs on my feet and there was a bunch of water in front of the vehicle. And sure enough, what happened? Zooming right by the vehicle. And
well, I guess the lesson there, Tom, there is don't wear Crocs.
Well, unfortunately for me, I'm a victim of a suicide attack in the military, and my feet were crushed, and that's the only things I can wear comfortably. And everybody's always dumping on me for wearing Crocs, but because of the fact that my feet are in such bad shape, that's all I can wear.
I was only fooling around.
I know what you're saying, but that's again. Now I put rubber boots on when I drop them off. I swear to God, I do. But anyway, I'm sorry to rant like this morning, Randy, but it's just not Randy, I'm sorry. But it's really, really, really upset me. So
all good. It's a frustrating issue, and I would add to it, and I think I'm probably in the minority here, I would put in the notorious spots, I put red light cameras in, to be honest with you, and one where you could get your return on investment is that Kelsey right here on Kemount Road. Every single day on my way home, I guarantee you, every single day, someone runs the red light as I approach it. I appreciate the time, Tom. Stay in touch.
I will. Thank you for taking the call.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, carbon tax, and Olive wants to talk about the bodies that are in the freezer units outside of the Health Sciences Centre. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Say good morning to the Interim Atlantic Director with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. That's Jay Goldberg. Morning, Jay. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. You should make an acronym out of your title.
I think you're exactly right. I've been listening in this morning, and I just wanted to... The government did make a very quiet announcement earlier this week that the gas tax cut is going to be extended for another year.
Good.
So I wanted to come on to talk about that.
Appreciate the info.
Yeah, so, as it was announced, the Finance Ministry announced just a couple of days ago, again, we're getting an 8.05 cent per liter gas tax cut. It was cut in June of 2022, and it's staying until at least the end of March next year. So that's huge news. I mean, the average family, two-car family, is saving at least $500 a year. And this is really going to help to make sure that the carbon tax hike on April the 1st while it will be difficult and it's going to increase gas prices by about 3 cents a liter, we still have this here because if the government hadn't acted, you would have seen, combined with the federal carbon tax increase and the provincial gas tax coming back in, roughly an 11-cent increase on taxes at the pump on April 1st if they hadn't taken this action. So I certainly want to applaud Premier Fury and Minister Cody for making this decision. It's definitely a decision where they are leading the country in terms of making sure that there is gas tax relief. They've done it the longest. They've extended it for the longest period of time of any province. And certainly it's good to see parties of all stripes, the NDP in Manitoba, the Conservative government in Ontario, and of course the Liberal government in Newfoundland and Labrador, all recognizing that folks are hurting and that gas prices need to go down and taking this action.
And luckily for this neck of the woods, we've seen carbon tax carved out of our home heating fuels, which of course has been a bone of contention in Western Canada in particular, but it's been a nice relief here. There's also been a HST taken away from home insurance, or the provincial portion of HST taken away from home insurance as well. So there has been some cost of living measures adhered to. And you mentioned the Liberal government here. I think I'm right here, is that Premier Fury is the only Liberal Premier in the country.
That's exactly right. He is the only Liberal Premier in the country, but he certainly stood up to Ottawa when it comes to home heating. You know, you mentioned the exemption for home heating oil. I mean, that didn't just happen. That was very strong advocacy from MPs from Atlantic Canada, but also Premier Fury was at the forefront of calling on the Prime Minister to take that action. Obviously, with the Taxpayers Federation, you know, we're glad to see that. We would like to see that extended to other forms of home heating all around the country. It is, of course, a bone of contention, but that was certainly a step in the right direction. He pushed for it, and I think Premier Fury was also very clear. He made a number of statements, such as when Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland suggested that people should bike or take the subway if they can't afford to pay the carbon tax at the gas pumps. And you know, he said, my folks here can't exactly take the subway to get to work or school. So he's really done something there, and he stood up to the Prime Minister when he's had to. And this is a very big decision, which is going to mean that by the end of this extension period, March 31st, it'll have been in place for almost 3 years, and the typical family will have saved well over $1,000. So very good news.
The carbon tax carve out on home heating fuels here. Look, I heat my home with oil, so I'm pleased that this has happened. But when we talk about carbon tax in an effort to put price point pressure so people change their behaviors or their habits, you know, it's kind of strange in some form that they were unwilling to take carbon tax away from much so-called cleaner sources of home energy, like natural gas, which is predominantly used in Alberta, for instance. So we're taking the carbon tax off what would be the heaviest pollutant for heating your home versus the cleaner in natural gas. So it's a bit of a contradiction, but I'm happy enough as a taxpayer here in this province that I'm not paying carbon tax to heat my home. Anything else on that front? Because I have another question for you.
Well, I was just going to say you're absolutely right. Obviously, it was a political decision. There was a lot of pressure from MPs in Atlantic Canada. The Trudeau government acted, but it really did show. I mean, the Trudeau government has consistently said Canadians are better off with the carbon tax. If that was true, they wouldn't have had to do the carve-out for home heating in Atlantic Canada on home heating oil. The fact that they did that shows that they know it does make life more expensive, and you're exactly right when you talk about natural gas, much cleaner, and yet folks who are heating their homes with natural gas, they're still paying roughly $300 this winter in carbon taxes just to heat their home.
And when we talk about necessities of life in a northern climate, I think there's a fair argument to be made on the national stage that we should not have HST on home heating sources, regardless of the source itself, because, I mean, we don't tax food. Now, if I go to Sobeys and I buy a prepared sandwich, I pay tax on it, but I don't pay it on a turnip. So if we don't pay tax on food because everyone has to eat, well, everyone has to heat their home too. So I know there's a revenue side implication if you remove tax on home heating, but I think there's a fair, legitimate national debate to be had on that front, to be honest.
I think you're exactly right. And actually, you know, folks are sending us their home heating bills all the time. And HST is charged, the sales tax is charged on top of the carbon tax. So, you know, I know we're just saying that it was taken off of, the carbon tax was taken off of home heating oil. But if you still heat your home with natural gas, the carbon tax is charged on that original payment, and then the sales tax is charged both on the gas and the gas delivery, but also on the carbon tax itself. So we're paying tax on tax. So absolutely it should go. And yes, there's a revenue implication, but the implication is you have to find efficiencies elsewhere to make people's lives more affordable. And you're exactly right. You have to heat your home the same way you have to eat. And so that shouldn't be something that's taxed. It certainly shouldn't be something where taxes are increasing, because if the whole point of the carbon tax supposedly is to try to change their behaviors, I mean, you have to heat your home. Jack Layton consistently said this when the Liberals proposed the carbon tax under Stéphane Dion in 2008. People have to heat their home. It's not optional, and it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, now there has been plenty of federal and provincial initiatives to talk about the different ways to heat your home and upgrade for energy efficiencies. And you know, the easy place for people to start is with windows and insulation, for instance. But there's been all sorts of pots of money about moving away from oil to central heat pumps or mini splits and the like, or electric furnaces. So there are opportunities out there. And as we mentioned that, there are so many, and it's a bit overwhelming and it's slightly confusing. If you're wanting to take advantage of any of those things, and of course the Greener Home Grant has gone by the wayside, there's no longer any money in that fund, but if you're talking about getting one of these mini splits or central heat pumps or electric furnace, call the folks that sell and install. They will give you all the information. They will walk you through every rebate or subsidy that's available. So that's the hub. And in addition to that, I always try to add this potential, I'll call it warning. If you're considering it, also call your insurance provider, because for some companies, they will not say that a central heat pump is a primary source of heat that they will acknowledge as one. So call both, the seller, the installer, and the insurance company to make sure you're on the right track.
Exactly right.
Last one, Jay, before we get to the news break here. I know that your organization is speaking out on the fact that come April the 1st, the parliamentarians will be getting a pay raise. Now, the numbers aren't out formally from the Government of Canada, but generally speaking, it has followed the same historical track. If the private sector saw a 4.2% on average bump in salary, then generally speaking, that will be applied to the members of Parliament's salary. So 4.2% translates to a significant amount of money. Just for instance, pre-pandemic salary for a member of Parliament, about $179,000. Current salary, $194,500. April 1, with the guesstimate of 4.2%, over $202,000. Ministers went from $254 prior to the pandemic. With this raise, they'll see a $299 plus. The Prime Minister from $357.8, with the proposed 4.2, over $405,000. So if the politicians want to be honest about their concern for cost of living, concern for the revenue side, concern about expenditures, read the room. Just like after the 2008-2009 recession, they did not get a pay increase from 2010 to 2013. The same needs to be said today. Canadians are struggling by and large. Parliamentarians are not. Do not take a pay raise this April 1st.
You're absolutely right. It just shows that politicians are so out of touch with the lives of Canadians. And I mean, to begin with, these salaries are 3 to 4 to 5 times more than the typical Canadian is earning. Folks are struggling. You've got almost 1 million Canadians are working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. And then, yeah, as you said, you have these politicians who also get a lot of other perks. There's a lot of retirement perks. There's a lot of add-ons that come with that. And so you're absolutely right. Read the room. In Ontario, they've frozen MPP pay for 15 years in a row. Now, I'm not necessarily saying there should never be a consideration of changing anything, but certainly when you've got a time of high inflation, a real cost of living concern, you've got folks who can't pay their bills. 50% of Canadians say they're $200 away from not being able to pay their bills. We don't want to see a situation where you have folks in Ottawa that are so out of touch with the lives of the typical taxpayer that they just keep rolling in these raises and just have no real understanding of the difficulty that Canadians are going through. And so absolutely right, they need to lead by example, and leading by example means freezing MP pay for a significant amount of time, because the average MP is already paid, as you said now, about $200,000. I think that's enough for a good while.
The average Canadian full-time worker, according to Stats Canada, is $67,000, so people can do their own math. Jay, appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Jay Goldberg, Interim Atlantic Director with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Oliver, we appreciate your patience. You're up right after the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Olive, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
I just wanted to talk about, pick your brain a little bit first to see if I got this right. The addition they're talking about adding on to the hospital for those bodies. With all due respect to the families and everything, I understand what mourning is and closure and all that stuff. I really do. And with all due respect, and prayers be with everybody, But at the same time, Patrick, the thing is, the way I see it, it doesn't make any sense. We're going to have taxed up the taxpayers. We're in a major deficit. We're going to pay to keep dead people cold. And, well, we have alive people freezing to death. Shouldn't the money put somewhere else, maybe in the machine for the hospital? Maybe we should keep our people that are still alive warm instead of paying to keep dead people cold.
Well, you have to do both. I mean, what do you suggest people do with a corpse as opposed to keep it cold?
I would assume they would bury them and maybe have a ceremony or something, plant some trees. I mean, there has to be an alternative. I mean, it's a lot of money to spend on dead people. I mean, it sounds cool. I don't mean it that way, Patrick. I really don't. It just, like, I'm watching people freezing to death. And the thought of spending so much, and the storage, the price of it, and I mean, can't they just have a mass site and have some kind of like ceremony for closure for people instead of spending all this money when we really need that money for our people?
Well, there's a few things. For starters, there's got to be some time frame allotted for family members to collect their lost loved ones. So, and the concept has also been part of the conversation is, let's just say, for instance, that the government chooses the lowest price point would be a basic cremation. But what happens if on the heels of that, the family comes forward and then you cause potentially another problem down the road? So I don't know if there's a legislated time for which the government is responsible for keeping a dead body or a corpse before it's dealt with. Like I know in certain parts of the world, for instance, take New York City. If you are unclaimed, you get buried in an unmarked grave in Potter's Field. Is that something we should incorporate here? I don't know. I'd also like to see a cost comparison about what it's going to take to install a permanent freezer solution in or around the hospital versus what were the death benefits paid out last year. 360 people came forward and applied for the death benefit of $23.38, which added up to $990,000. So what's the actual, not only the cost-saving measure, but also talking about the dignity required to be applied to folks who have been, have died for whatever the circumstance will be. Now, 4 of the 28 bodies have died due to suspicious circumstances, and the chief medical examiner, Dr. Nash Denich, he has the authority to call for a cremation. He has not yet done so. I don't know why, but that is also part of this conversation.
Okay, so is it is there a time is this going to be this add-on a permanent situation? If it's not, why would we have to have an add-on if it's only going to be temporary? That seems like a lot of money. It's not going to be permanent.
Well, there's always been possibility and times when the morgue has overcapacity. So whether it be there was 1 freezer unit, now there's 4, and to pretend that the government didn't know is also a bit confusing, given the fact that the staff of the health sciences knew. The 4th unit was brought there in December. Somebody has to know because the bills, for instance, have to be paid. So how we're led to believe that people at the governmental level at Confederation Building were unaware of the overflow at the provincial morgue at the Health Sciences Centre is also confusing or troubling, or however you want to label it.
I know. It's just I guess I'm not the only one confused by it, right? It just seems like somebody's not saying. I don't know.
Well, I am trying to find out if there's something regarding legislation where there's a certain amount of time where the government is responsible to hold onto a corpse before the family has given an opportunity to collect, and that's probably a bit of a cold word, but to come and get the body of their lost loved one and deal with it how they see fit. So whether or not the solution lies in increasing the death benefit, because it's $2,338, it's been that for almost 20 years and it has not increased. Some people in the country will also be able to access the CPP death benefit. So between the different pots of money, we might be able to come up with cost coverage, but it's got to be about money, and it's also got to be about humanity and dignity as well. So how you incorporate that, there's no... Pardon?
Well, definitely. There definitely has to be something like that. I mean, I believe that there's a different way that they can be gone about. I just think that, a permanent unit seems a little bit extreme. I mean, I understand, to give people a certain amount of time, but to build an actual permanent unit, when, obviously it's not going to be there for the next 20 years. They're not going to keep these bodies. It just seems confusing to me. Like I said, people are freezing that in their lives. So that's what I really got to say. I was just confused about it, and I just wanted to see what you thought. That's all.
Yeah, and insofar as an additional permanent solution versus these freezer units that you'd see behind the transport truck, there's always going to be the possibility as time rolls on that there will be the more overcapacity. The question will be, how do we deal with that? So whether it be a permanent solution inside, permanent infrastructure at the Health Sciences Centre, and or we try to address it on the other side, the 9-page complicated application for a death benefit coverage or funeral coverage, and or increasing that amount of money, and or the creation of automatic after 30 days, 60 days, that the body will be cremated by the government. So there's a bunch of different issues inside of this. So I don't think it's as simple as, well, we build a permanent freezer unit and that's the story is now gone by the wayside, because that doesn't cover all the bases either.
No, not at all. And just one more thing, as far as the desecration of bodies, I think that having a dead body in a freezer is I think that's desecration of a body in itself. So on that note, I'll leave you with that. I know you're busy this morning, but thanks for taking my call, and hopefully we'll straighten it out somehow.
Yeah, we'll keep trying to figure out all the different complexities, but I appreciate the time, Olive. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Patrick. You hold in there now for a storm, and have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, it's a story, that's for sure. Let's see here. Let's take a break. As we mentioned off the top of the program, the consumer advocate Dennis Brown has put out a news release yesterday talking about the need to install smart meters. Consequently, it's all that concept of price point pressure and changing our behaviors. So if and when we were given the ability to do high energy issues like wash your clothes or turn on the dishwasher or the like, if I knew I could save money by throwing in the laundry at 10 p.m. versus before I go to work, then I'd probably do it. And so these smart meters are in jurisdictions around the world, and there is a cost saving for the consumer. Newfoundland Power pushes back and says, well, the cost to upgrade the system would cost in the neighborhood of $100 million, and they don't think they could justify it at the PUB level for an actual benefit to consumers. We'll hear from the consumer advocate right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. The province's consumer advocate is Dennis Brown, and he joins us on 5. Good morning, Dennis. You're on the
Morning, Patty.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So this is an interesting topic, and of course sometimes we see and hear these stories like it's, oh my God, we're something brand new. Smart meters are the furthest thing from new. They've been employed in jurisdictions around North America for decades. So what exactly are you proposing?
Yeah, smart meters are an advanced metering system, and it will tell householders how much energy you're using and where it is used and when it is used. It can tell you your consumption habits when you are using your most energy, and smart meters allow for options so that time of use rates would come into effect with smart meters. So if you're using your electricity during peak periods, you would pay more than if you're using it during off-peak periods. And of course, this would help the system entirely. Right now, the whole system is operating as if we're always on peak, and we are not. Patty, I should tell you that there's probably no other utility in the country that is not using smart meters or looking at using smart meters. The only one I can see not interested in it is Newfoundland Power. And that is very concerning because with smart meters, we can manage our own electricity, and therefore we can reduce where required. Right now, the only one managing our electricity is Newfoundland Power. So there's a problem here. And Newfoundland Power does not want to change. They issued a press release and said, yeah, that's something we may look at in 2035. Well, there's a reality check here. In Canada, right now, over 6 million households have smart meters. There are some statistics which tell us that in the next 2 to 3 years, 92% of Canadians will be using smart meters. So the only ones that don't appear to be interested in smart meters is Newfoundland Power. And furthermore, the meters that they are using in some jurisdictions are declared obsolete. Everyone is into smart meters now. So I really don't know where they're coming from on this, but I can tell you this, we will be bringing this to the Public Utilities Board in no uncertain terms during the general rate application, and we will be seeking the direction of the board to instruct Newfoundland Power to start using smart meters in this jurisdiction.
Dennis, can you give us an idea from wherever they're using smart meters, exactly what the difference would be in the rates charged with on-peak and off-peak usage?
That would be part of the process, part of the mechanics when we opt into them to see what peak hours will be valued at versus off-peak hours. But they're very beneficial, too, from a householder's perspective, because a smart meter will tell you what appliances you're using and how much electricity is being used by each appliance, so that if your dryer is old and not working efficiently, all of a sudden you will become aware of that and you can take the necessary action. So it's very consumer oriented, and that's why smart meters are everyone is changing to smart meters all over the world. And in Canada and in the United States, that's where it's all headed. I would think in a couple of years' time, the meters that Newfoundland Power is using now would not even be available anymore, because if the rest of Canada is into smart meters, they are using effectively an obsolete metering system, and it's not good enough. And the people of our province have a right to control their own cost and their electricity, and to enjoy the benefits that the people of other provinces have. They have a monopoly here, and they seem to take pride in not changing anything. I should also add, Patty, their comments on costing are really not accurate. They're saying it will cost $100 million. Everything that they purchase is purchased over time. So if it's $100 million, that will be financed over a 10 or 20-year period. That's what they do with all their costing. So that's all they would do here. But I can tell you right now, like in this budget, they're looking for $800,000, $500,000 to replace old meters with meters which some people would say are obsolete, and then they're using another $300,000 to put in new meters. So when you see them coming with a meter, it's not a meter that is being used in other jurisdictions. They should be using smart meters and attempt to assist the ratepayers of the province, particularly in the Muskrat Falls area.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the $100 million quote coming from Newfoundland Power. They talk about the need to upgrade the advanced metering infrastructure, more advanced meters, new communication infrastructure, data management systems. So inside that $100 million, does that cover the 275,000 smart meters that would be required for it to be a province-wide affair? I don't know. But, I looked at Hydro One, and they will talk about smart metering. When it was introduced, they'd say the smart meters come to your home at no cost to you, which is also misleading because there's no free lunch in this country. And so consequently, whether it be in rate hike applications in front of the regulatory bodies, someone's paying for them. So in this smart meter world, how much does a general new modern smart meter cost individually? Because we are talking about the transfer of 275,000 of them.
Well, we're talking about $200 to $300 for a smart meter. It takes about 20 minutes to install. The old meter in your house, therefore, would no longer be used. That's there, but it's not something that you're using. And you would have an app. So on the app, you would see exactly what electricity you're using, what rooms are using electricity, what appliances are on. If you forgot to turn off the lights down in the basement, they're on for a week, that will show up on a smart meter. So it will help you. And in terms of costing, we've got to remember Newfoundland Power is out there with a general rate application. And in that general rate application, they're trying to increase their rate of return from 8.5% to 9.8%. And you know what that will cost ratepayers? Over the 3-year period of the GRA, that's the time period the GRA is in place, that will cost ratepayers $30 million. So it's all relative, isn't it, Paddy?
Well, is that number included in your reference in your news release that say ratepayers already have supplied $32 million for these potential upgrades?
Well, that's another thing. The Newfoundland Power went and got the customer service system, which cost us $32 million, but it doesn't operate as well without smart meters. There's smart meters and that system would go hand to hand. So they only got part of the process in place already, but they don't seem ready to do what every other jurisdiction in the country is doing. And it's just not good enough. Ratepayers deserve better.
Dennis, is a smart meter, because it kind of sounds like it gives me options to do things at different times of day to save myself money. So who would be the ultimate winner here, ratepayer or the utility?
Because the ratepayer, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying
because you control your own usage, and that's what it's all about. And that's why it's being used all over the country. Here, Newfoundland Power has a monopoly, but in some jurisdictions it has no monopoly. They have competing interest. So smart meters probably are really valuable in that jurisdiction, but here, where they have a monopoly, I think it's very important that ratepayers have options, and the smart meter will give ratepayers options.
I would suggest it would also be good for the utility itself, because if we take some of the peak demand off of the grid, then reliability becomes more manageable, the opportunity for blackouts and brownouts, and I'm not talking about weather-induced events, but just the overload of demand would be tempered. So I do indeed have the Hydro One calculator. I'm trying to figure out how to use it, because I'm just trying to understand exactly what sort of tiered or time of use pricing will mean for my savings ultimately over the course of a month. You know, using very general numbers, 700 kilowatts, for instance. So I'm going to play around with the calculator and see. We will indeed invite Newfoundland Power on to talk about their position on this and how and why one of the few utilities in the country not employing smart meters, when the numbers that you provide, 94% of the Canadian households will be using it by some date in the very near future, 97% in the United States. So we'll keep chasing it, because in addition to 1.5% increase in the general rate application this year, 5.5 next year, rate of return increase from 8.5 to 9.85. All of these things are inherently and intrinsically linked.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct. It will help the system, because the system is operating at peak. Like right now, we're into a Holyrood still, and oil and burning oil, and as if we're into the peak part of the system. But if we all have smart meters, we will be able to balance the load a lot better, which would be a value to the entire system. So it has its advantages, and we're not being the only province in Canada that don't have smart meters. So I want that message to get through loud and clear to our friends at Newfoundland Power. It's time that Newfoundland Power join the other utilities across the country and provided smart meters to their ratepayers.
I appreciate the time, Dennis.
All the best.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye. Dennis Brown, the province's consumer advocate. Let's take a break for the news. Interesting story out there in the fishery. And there's a Lassie crab boat skipper named Jimmy Lee Foss. And there's an issue regarding a controlling agreement. Now, we'll let Jimmy Lee tell us more about the details, but this has been settled in court. You know, the controlling agreements are not supposed to be in place, period. But Jimmy Lee Foss has an interesting story to tell. We're also going to get an update from the Lecturers Union at Memorial University, who are poised to strike if and when they can't come to an agreement with the university for the per course instructors. And Barry also wants to talk about the bodies that are in the freezer units outside the hospital. Don't go away.
Nutrition, exercise, keeping the cold at bay. Whatever keeps you feeling great, the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Show on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 3 and say good morning to crab boat skipper out fishing out of Lassie is Jimmy Lee Foss. Good morning, Jimmy. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you?
Doing good, sir. Do people call you Jimmy Lee or just Jimmy?
Jimmy is fine, buddy.
Okay. Jimmy, welcome to the program. This is quite the story. Give us the Coles notes about where we are.
Well, I know where I am. I'm basically waiting for someone to knock on the door here and tell me to get out of the house. Paddy, that's what it feels like anyways.
So this is all about the fact that you've entered into what people refer to as a controlling agreement. What was the agreement and with who?
Well, the agreement was with Quinlan Brothers. Well, I'd say Robin, because Robin Quinlan, he's the man I dealt with. This boat come up for sale a couple of years back, and they approached me to get me in the deal, the seller and the plant, Robin. And my life has been upside down ever since, Paddy, to be honest with you. I was doing pretty well. I had a bad accident a few years ago. Bad one. Ended up in St. John's, but I came back from that and I got my skipper's ticket, started running boats, and my name got out there, and I guess Robin got a hold of my name, and they got me in an impossible deal, and when things went bad, left me high and dry.
So inside of this purchase, which was financed by CIBC, $3.8 million, also included not only the boat, the Ocean Surfer 2, but the commercial license of the snow crab and shrimp, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, she came with, well, right now my quota is about 120,000 pound of crab and 70,000 pound of shrimp. I mean, anybody knows that's relatively small for an offshore quota, right?
Okay, so now that we know that this has been settled in the courts, including a Labrador fisherman, and that court proceeding took place in Halifax some years ago, how did this come to light, public light?
Well, I mean, first when I got on this, Paddy, all I seen was, holy shit, you know, I'm 36 years old and I got a chance to own a boat. You know, my father supported me a lot. He's been in the fishery all of his life, so I used to take him to the meetings and this and that. And I mean, we pretty much knew, or had a good friggin' idea that there wasn't much money in this business. You know, there was a bogus business plan done up by Quinlan Brothers, so the bank would loan the money. I mean, species I don't even fish was on the business plan showing revenue. You know, it was all bogus. It was a doomed deal, and to me, I was a pawn just to keep that product in Quinlan's plant. I mean, the general public might not know it, but you can't just go and buy this quota. You got to be qualified to hold the quota in your name. You have to be a level 2 fisherman, and that's harder to find every day. And the plant's found me, man. And my main topic here, and why I want to get this out in light, is I don't want another young guy to go down, you know, a young guy with potential to go down this road. I just don't. You know, Robin Quinlan promised me I was basically going to be a millionaire. It was impossible to fail. If you signed with Quinlan Brothers, it was impossible. We're on a long road together. We got your back, Jimmy. That's the exact words I was told. You know, and that gives you the final push to go into these deals, right?
And so what's the issue regarding your house being lost or what have you? So what's the terms that leads to that drastic outcome?
Well, basically is what I'm getting out of it is retract your DFO complaint, or we're going to take your home. I mean, there's no other way for me to take it. You know, I got it on paper from BDO. That's someone working on behalf of the bank. That was sent to me just, I don't know, a few days ago. There, it was in the post. Basically, they said if we don't have a positive response to this sign over in 7 days, then we're coming after your personal assets. So, I mean, that's kind of, someone is awful worried to me that there's a controlling agreement in place or that there's a complaint put down. I mean, they're trying to get me every way in the world to back out of it, threatening me every way in the world. And, you know, I've been told they're another fish company will never buy from me or touch me, which is probably true, but you know, the damage is done to me. I just don't want another young person to be hauled into this because he's qualified to hold quota. You know, they'll ruin your life in a heartbeat.
And so, who's coming after you? Is BDO coming after you, or who?
Well, BDO was coming after me, yeah, because I mean they want access to the license, and I mean as soon as these licenses are available, I could put my head on the block saying that Rob and Quinlan got a donor name in place. This license will never make it back to market. Robin got someone in place to buy this, and he will have the product back in his plant again this spring. And that's what this is all about, is the product. And that's why I was hauled in, to keep the product in his plant. And that, like I said, if it becomes available now, I would bet within an hour it'll be in someone's name, and it'll be shipped to Robin Quinlan's plant again this spring.
And when's the deadline for this to be? Or before I get to the deadline, is there an out available here for you?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Patty?
So, is there a way out of this? Is there a way out of the deal?
To me, it seems like if I agree with the bank and Quinlan's to shut up, then it would be easier on me. That's what I'm getting out of it, Patty. But I'm not willing to do it. So, I mean, I'm gone this far, and the last 2 years been hell on me and my family trying to watch me do something that's impossible to do. So I'm gone this far. I just want to warn people, man. That's my goal here. I want to warn young people. You know, I was doing fine. I was running someone else's boat, making a good living, walking on the boat and leaving the boat, just worrying about catching the fish. And since I got drawn into this, man, my life's been upside down. And I just want to warn people not to trust these guys, not to trust Robin Quinlan, especially. I can tell you from experience.
Well, and I have no business relations in that industry, so I have no comment on that. But, so is today the day when this is all going to come to the who shall?
No, I'm not sure, to say the truth. I don't know if BDO will get back to me or not, because, I mean, I was advised to tell them to deal with DFO. I mean, this is in their hands. It's not in my hands anymore. They already have, they got all the evidence they want from me. They served me a warrant. They got my phone, whatever else. So it's not in my hands anymore. I mean, to me, even if I said, okay, I'm done with it, I mean, this is with DFO now. It's not with me, and I don't think I did anything illegal by wanting this looked into. But like I said, now I'm being blackmailed with my home. You know, I got a young family here. I got 2 young boys still in school, a young wife, and my home. I had my home long before I had this enterprise. You know, but I got a feeling it's going to get pretty dirty.
Sounds like it already is. Jimmy, look, I wish you well. Keep us in the loop with how this unfolds.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Patty. I appreciate it.
I wish you good luck. Take care.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Bye. Bye-bye. It's Jimmy Lee Foss. Let's see. Crab Skipper. I'll get one more before we get to the break. Let's go to line number 5. Chris, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty. How are you?
Doing okay. How about you?
Doing fine, I guess, Patty. Well, it saddens me to hear that there's bodies in the morgue for months and months. Another reason why I'm calling your show is that we only need about 1,500 people to donate a $20 bill. And I'll be the first to donate the $20 bill if someone will start a GoFundMe campaign for this and get it over with. It's pretty appalling, Patty, you know, when you see all the money, like the cursed money, being wasted everywhere, and we can't find a way to bury our dead. What's the world coming to? And if this is the same, Patty, across the rest of the provinces across Canada, I urge the leaders to do something about it. If they can't have enough money to bury your people, well, the civilians of Canada, I guess, will have to come out and do it. And like I said, Paddy, I'll be the first one to donate the $20 bill to equal out that. We need about 300,000, I'm figuring, to bury 25 or 30 people.
Now, if anyone wants
What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, if people want to crowd fund for this type of thing, fair enough. And if it came to pass, I'd be happy enough to throw my 20 in there as well. It's a crying shame that it might come to something like this. Maybe, just maybe, the government can work quickly on this file, whether it be upping the funeral benefits that they afford to folks, which is now $2,338, or some other pragmatic approach to deal with this. So if someone wants to start that GoFundMe, they can call us and put it out over the airwaves, and I'll be the second one behind your 20.
Well, fair enough, Eddie. I hope someone gets it done, and that's about all I want to talk about today. But probably in the future, I'll call you and see if we can get 40 independents to run in the next election.
And then the herding of cats begins. Chris, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All the best.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning. When we come back, we're going to get an update on the Lecturers Union at MUN and their negotiations with the university. Barry also wants to talk about the bodies outside of HSC. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's get an update from Lumen, from Alison Coughlin, their spokesperson on 2. Alison, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
Unfortunately, the update today is that we have notified the university that our strike deadline is Sunday at 11:59. We are going back in a meeting with them today. Hopefully, they have seen the error of their ways and they will accept a reasonable salary proposal from our part. But at this point, the last message we got was, there's no more money, stop asking for it. And our members have just said, no, I'm sorry, that's not good enough.
So
that's
just
where we are.
very quickly, what are the per course instructors getting paid now? I know it's $5,000 to $58.75. What was the offer from the university, and what's the counter offer?
Well, the offer, and I'm not comfortable giving you the counter offer because that's only been made public to our members. But the offer that the university gave us, the one we talked about last day, was $68.90 going up to $73 and a bit over the course of 5 years. But they had suggested that the contract be from 2022 to 2026, and that's not appropriate because, of course, our contract expired in 2021. So they came back with another offer that said, well, we'll give you exactly the same rates, but we'll move it back to where it should have been in the first place in 2021. So, again, it's a package that our members rejected when it was incorrect. And so now that they've corrected it, it's still no better. They still offer us the overload rate, and they're still discounting it by vacation pay on top of that. So, no, our members are very upset. They're in fact, somewhat offended by this offer because, we are the least paid in Canada, and you contrast that with the administrative staff who are making more per student than anyone else in Canada by a very large amount. So, we really think that there needs to be more appropriate compensation that is in line with the work that we do, that is comparable to the other people teaching the exact same courses on the same campus.
So is that why your organization's assertion is that it's not in line, this recent offer from the university, is not in line with Atlantic Canada because there are certain contributing factors that have been omitted?
And that's part of it, absolutely. The university's assertion that we're in line with the Atlantic Canadian average is kind of ambiguous because the numbers that we have, we can't calculate them to get what they're saying. So they're either operating from a different set of numbers, which I imagine is older because their numbers are lower. Our numbers are completely up to date. We are with our national union, and they have the right up-to-date numbers, and we know that. When they say the Atlantic Canadian average, they're getting a different number than us. So, it seems that they're either operating from the wrong data or they're erroneously calculating some sort of number average to kind of justify their decision. And, we're at this, decision-based evidence making at this point. And our members can see through that. They know that that's not right. So, the numbers aren't jiving properly. Our members, again, remember, the offer that they are presenting only barely compensates us for the inflation that we've seen in the last, since 2018, right? So this is like 6 years of inflation that they have to sort out, in addition to let's get us back in line to something that appropriately reflects the work that we do compared to our counterparts. And if they want to start talking averages, they don't get to pick just the Atlantic Canadian average. Maybe we can talk about the Canadian average and maybe hit that in line, because after all, I mean, if administration, the people who are holding the purse strings, are making more than everybody in Canada, then maybe they can consider comparing us to the rest of Canada and putting that more in line. But, it comes down to treat us fairly, pay us fairly, and compensate us for the work that we are doing. And they just don't seem to be getting that. But we are going back to the table now, I think at 2:30 this afternoon, where we're going to, we slightly modified our proposal, but again, it reflects the need to pay us properly. So maybe by the end of the day, we'll have a little bit of progress. But again, if the university continues to say we've got no more money, maybe they need to consider something slightly different. Maybe they need to consider curtailing some of those administrative salaries in order to be able to afford the people who are delivering the courses that the students are registered at the university to take.
Sure, and the university can't really afford another tumultuous year. The students can't for sure. The per-course instructors get paid woefully little for the work they do in comparison to their counterparts. Alison, I appreciate the update, and when there's another, please provide. And thanks for your time this morning.
Will do. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Happy to do it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Alison Coffin is the spokesperson for the Lecturers Union at Mon. Let's go. Final word this morning very likely goes to line number one. Barry, you're on the air.
Yes, how you doing today, sir?
Doing okay. How about you?
Calling in with oh man, I don't know what to call it. Discuss, I guess, in the news yesterday of 28 bodies, is it, being stored at the health science behind the Janeway.
Yep.
In freezers, and after going through this last year, with our own mom, having to lay her to rest, it's a terrible enough ordeal to go through losing a loved one, but to have your loved one still in a freezer, I look at one time I was looking at the news in the States, in California, I think it was, where a morgue, a funeral home, we're supposed to have these people put to rest, and they would come to find out that they were still in being held in freezers and containers, some of them not even freezers. So it almost brings me back to that memory and saying, how demoralizing is it that these loved ones have to go through the agonizing, however long they've been there, months. We don't know how long they've been there. Is there estimated time which the first person was laid to rest there, and they're not even laid to rest, Patty. It's as a government, we have an outdated form which they fill out that are not even with current today's rates. Secondly and thirdly, we have airlines who, transport these people around, whether they be cremated or in a casket. We have funeral homes who, all these people these businesses that I'm talking about are making oodles of money and have made oodles of money on the backs of people who through funerals which they paid. So now I think it's time that the government update their form and start giving more to. And when people can't afford covering those costs and getting those people that I just mentioned, like funeral homes that have made oodles of money on the backs of you and me, giving back at a reduced cost or reduced cost to government. Airlines, same thing. We know these companies are making oodles of money, and it's time to start giving back. We have people out there which are, within the Carpenters Union that could maybe help out here. people donating lumber, whether it be to make a casket or to make a box for a urn to go in. There's different ways of doing it, and the government is doing nothing. And that's what boils my blood, is that they made oodles of money off of the sugar tax, but yet you're leaving people's human remains belonging to loved ones in freezers. Is something that you would hear of in the States, not here in Canada.
It's quite sad, and we've just gone past 12 noon, but I appreciate your time and your input this morning, Barry. Thank you.
Yeah, the government got to do better is what my last remark was.
Fair ball. Thanks for the call.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, good show. Big thanks to all hands who support the program, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy, stormy day. Talk tomorrow. Bye-bye.